Well, let's bring in Professor Emeritus of Harvard Law School and the author of the new book, War Against the Jews, How to End Hamas Barbarism. Alan Dershowitz joins us this evening. Pleasure to have you in, as always, sir.
Thank you. Well, you know, a Harvard professor about 10 years ago lost tenure, was fired, had to go to a different university because he refused to turn over data as well. Academics are obliged to turn over their data for peer scrutiny. And when an academic refuses to turn over the underlying data, that raises a red flag as to whether she has something to hide. So I think Harvard
Why has she been able to skirt by all this? That it does seem like that. And even we've learned, Professor Dershowitz, when they learned about her plagiarism, it was before the disastrous congressional testimony, and they hired defamation attorneys as if they were prepared to defend it. It finally leaked out a month later, but she seems to be getting a lot of passes here. Do you believe it's influence maybe with President Obama?
Well, no, I think it's influenced by diversity, equity, and inclusion, which gives favoritism to certain groups based on equity. Look, she's not the only Black intellectual who's being given a double standard. Take, for example, the woman whose movie is now the largest grossing opening movie on Christmas, Alice Walker. She has a history of being a rampant anti-Semite. She has encouraged people to read books by people who have been Holocaust deniers and supporters of Hitler and supporters of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. But she gets a pass. I think today under DEI, if you're Black and you're an intellectual, you have a double standard applied to you. If a white author had written a great book, as Color Purple is, but had been revealed as a virulent anti-Black racist or white supremacist, nobody would have directed this film like Spielberg did. Nobody would have put it on in the movies. So we are seeing closer to home the mainstreaming of anti-Semitism, double standards applied to African-American people who are not sufficiently tough on anti-Semitism. And we're seeing a double standard applied in plagiarism as well. So this is Harvard ought to change its motto from Veritas, truth, to double standard, because we've seen the double standard on plagiarism, the double standard. She discovered free speech when it came to hate speech Jews. She never applied it before.
Well, we know you have a lot of pull there, so let's see what happens with the Veritas logo. It's a novel thought there, Professor Dershowitz. I'm glad we have you tonight because there's a big story brewing in Michigan as well. I know you've been following this closely. The Supreme Court today announced its ruling to keep former President Donald Trump on the state's 2024 ballot, upholding a lower court's ruling. Trump responded to the decision on Truth Social. We'll put up part of what he said. But basically, he feels the Michigan Supreme Court strongly and rightfully denied desperate Democrat attempt to take the leading candidate in the 2024 presidential election off the ballot. The pathetic gambit, he says, to rig the election has failed all across the country, finishing with the fact that Colorado is the only state to have fallen prey to the scheme. But we know this is going to be a continuing issue. So far, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Arizona have ruled to keep Trump on their state's ballot, but Colorado is the only state to kick Trump off the ballot. Now, this decision also in Oregon is still pending, so it's likely going to end up at the Supreme Court, Professor Dershowitz. Does Michigan help with the case to kind of offset what Colorado did?
Yes, it almost guarantees that the Supreme Court has to review it. When you have two states, each interpreting the same provision of the Constitution very differently, involving an upcoming presidential election, it's a virtual guarantee that the Supreme Court will have to decide the case. And I think they will take the case, and I think, but I can't be absolutely sure, that they'll do the right thing and say the 14th Amendment doesn't provide procedures for how one disqualifies somebody based on allegations of insurrection. It is not a self-defining or self-enforcing provision. The Constitution says that Congress and only Congress has the right to enforce it, not the Colorado court, not the Michigan court. And I think the Supreme Court will say that.
Well, big day with that ruling in Michigan, then, that obviously could alter where these cases and the states go. Professor Alan Dershowitz, pleasure to have you in tonight, sir. Thank you for your time.
Happy, buddy. Thank you.